South Korea just dropped a truth bomb the world wasn't ready for, and it's about us. For decades, we thought they only saw Filipinos as workers, performers, or students chasing opportunity. But behind the glossy K-dramas and trade deals, Seoul finally admitted something raw, something powerful. Without Filipinos, their miracle might have slowed to a crawl. And here's the twist. This confession wasn't out of pity. It was out of respect. Ready to find out why South Korea finally said it out loud? If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type "interested" in the comments, and I will give you a heart. Let's be honest, most people never expected South Korea to admit this. A country that's built its reputation on precision, pride, and perfection rarely lifts the curtain to show vulnerability. But this time they did, and what came out wasn't just numbers or policy changes, it was a confession that hit differently, and 6 big hunks. See, South Korea didn't just reveal that they value Filipinos, they admitted they depend on us quietly, constantly, consistently. Behind the world's most disciplined economy is an invisible backbone. Filipino workers, caregivers, engineers, English teachers, and artists who've been shaping their nation from the inside out. For years, the global narrative painted Filipinos as the ones seeking opportunity. But South Korea just flipped that script. They're the ones seeking us. In 2025, South Korea's Ministry of Employment and Labor released a report that should have made global headlines. It showed that Filipino workers now make up one of the fastest growing segments in South Korea's employment permit system, EPS, with over 65,000 Filipinos employed across manufacturing, construction, and service industries. That's a 47% increase compared to 5 years ago. But numbers don't tell the story, people do. Take Rico, a factory worker in Gyeonggi province. He started as a welder, earning barely enough to send home. Now, he trains local staff. He laughs when people assume he's just a laborer. "I'm not just part of the machine," he says, "I keep it running." And he's not wrong, because while Korea perfects technology, it's the Filipinos who keep the heartbeat steady, the human touch that robots can't replicate. And here's the part that'll make you think twice. South Korea didn't just admit our value in the workforce, they acknowledged our culture's influence. The Korean Ministry of Culture recently highlighted that Filipino teachers are now among the top contributors to the spread of English proficiency across Korean schools and global firms. Why? Because Koreans trust Filipino instructors to blend discipline with empathy, the perfect mix for results. But there's always a but. Behind that compliment lies a crack. South Korea's aging population is skyrocketing. In 2024, the Korean Statistical Information Service, KOSIS, confirmed that for every 100 working age adults, 26 are elderly, a ratio that could double by 2050. The youth don't want to do blue-collar jobs anymore. The elderly need care. The economy needs hands. And South Korea looked around, then looked south. That's when they realized the answer wasn't in automation or AI, it was in Filipino values. Because here's what automation can't replace: patience, empathy, joy under pressure. Filipinos bring something that can't be coded: heart. South Korea's biggest revelation isn't about economics, it's about humanity. They realize that no matter how advanced they get, they'll always need the warmth Filipinos bring. But don't get it twisted, this isn't charity. It's recognition born out of necessity. A South Korean policy analyst said it bluntly during a 2025 labor conference. The Filipino workforce represents our future stability. Without them, many of our industries will crumble. That statement rippled through Seoul like a cold wind. Because for a country that prides itself on self-reliance, admitting dependence, especially on foreigners, is a cultural earthquake. But here's what's even more fascinating. South Korea didn't just stop at words. They backed it up. The 2025 EBS reform now prioritizes Filipino applicants for long-term skilled visas. That means easier renewal, faster processing, and clearer pathways to permanent employment. Why? Because their data showed Filipino workers had the lowest dropout rate and highest performance satisfaction among all foreign hires. The Korean dream, once reserved for locals, is slowly being rewritten with Filipino hands. Yet, while South Korea celebrates our value, Filipinos on the ground live a different reality. Long shifts, language barriers, homesickness that hits harder than jet lag. The respect exists, but the recognition is still catching up. Still, one thing's clear, South Korea's confession didn't come from guilt. It came from gratitude. They saw what we've built with them, not for them. From K-drama production crews featuring Filipino staff to care homes where Filipino nurses are called family, the transformation is real. And it's making waves across Asia. Because the moment South Korea admitted this truth, other nations started whispering, maybe it's time we do the same. We'll get to that later, because what comes next in this story will make your jaw drop. For now, hit the comments and type prodded Pinoy, because this isn't just South Korea's confession. It's proof that what the world once underestimated is now impossible to ignore. Here's the uncomfortable truth that South Korea didn't put in the report. Their success story has a Filipino heartbeat. It's not just about labor gaps or skill shortages, it's about dependence dressed up as partnership. You can't scroll through Seoul's glossy PR reels about progress without seeing the fingerprints of Filipinos holding it all together, from the classrooms to the construction sites. But it wasn't always like this. A decade ago, South Korea saw Filipino labor as temporary help. The plan was simple: bring them in, fill the gaps, send them home. Except something unexpected happened. Filipinos didn't just fill gaps, they filled roles that no one else could. They brought humanity into an economy obsessed with perfection. When South Korea faced its healthcare crisis in 2024, guess who stepped up? Filipino caregivers. In the aftermath of that harsh winter when elderly care homes were understaffed and overwhelmed, local news outlets like the Korea Herald quietly reported that foreign caregivers, mostly from the Philippines, prevented the system from collapsing. And it didn't stop there. In 2025, the Korean Ministry of Health announced that more than 38% of newly hired long-term care professionals were Filipinos. Let that sink in. Nearly 4 in 10 care workers are Filipino, not because of quotas or convenience, but because of something deeper: trust. When asked why, one care home director said, "They treat our elders like their own. No training can teach that." But there's the other side of this truth, the one that hurts to admit. Filipinos are celebrated, but not always protected. Many endure long hours, modest pay, and isolation, yet they stay. Because that's what resilience looks like when it has no backup plan. It's loyalty turned survival. Take Eileen, a nurse from Cebu who's been working in Busan for 5 years. She calls her patients Lolo and Lola because it feels like caring for her own family. But when asked about her life outside work, her voice cracks. "I spend most holidays alone. I miss home. But when my patients smile, it feels worth it." That's the paradox South Korea finally had to face. They rely on people who sacrifice everything to keep their system humane, yet they rarely acknowledge how heavy that burden is. It's like relying on oxygen, but pretending you don't breathe. The Korean Labor Ministry's 2025 Essential Workforce Outlook even went so far as to say, the contribution of Filipino workers in sustaining key industries is integral to maintaining national stability. That's government language for, we can't function without them. It's not flattery, it's fact. And while South Korea's economy thrives, its demographics are collapsing. The birth rate just hit a record low of 0.68 in 2025, the lowest in the world. To put that into perspective, a stable population needs a rate of 2.1. That means for every 2 Koreans, there's not even 1 baby being born to replace them. The country is aging faster than any other developed nation, and by 2050, nearly 40% of its citizens will be over 65. So when South Korea praises Filipinos, it's not charity, it's survival instinct. They see the writing on the wall. Robots can't raise children. Algorithms can't care for the sick. And if the trend continues, the Korea we know today won't exist without the Filipino workforce keeping it alive. But here's the twist. Filipinos aren't just saving South Korea's economy. They're reshaping its identity. Korean media now features Filipino stories, from caregivers who've become TV hosts to students winning innovation awards. Even the Korea-Philippines Friendship Foundation reported a surge in intercultural marriages, a reflection of how deeply Filipinos have become part of the nation's social fabric. And guess what? South Korea is responding. The new Friendly Korea program, launched in early 2025, aims to create better cultural integration and faster visa renewals for Filipino workers. Something that used to take months now takes weeks. They're even revising their education programs to include Tagalog support in select provinces. That's not just reform, that's recognition. But maybe the most powerful moment came earlier this year when South Korea's Minister of Labor, Kim Ha-young, made an unexpected statement at a global workforce forum. Filipinos are not temporary guests in our economy, they are builders of our progress. That's the confession that broke the facade. The same country once obsessed with image just said out loud that its future depends on us. And yet, let's not get too comfortable. Confession is one thing, commitment is another. South Korea may admit the truth, but until equality follows, the story isn't done. Filipinos deserve not just jobs, but dignity, fair pay, secure visas, and the right to belong where they've already proven they matter. Still, something about this moment feels different. South Korea didn't make this revelation under pressure. It came naturally, like an overdue thank you finally spoken. And if you think that's the end of the story, think again, because what happens next could change how the entire world treats Filipino workers. The domino effect is already starting, and you want to hear who's next. Before we get there, drop the word respect in the comments if you believe South Korea's truth isn't just their story, it's the beginning of a global awakening. When South Korea finally said it, that truth the world wasn't ready for, it didn't just echo through Asia. It shook the global stage. Because this wasn't just about economics or workforce shortages, this was about acknowledgement. A powerful, overdue recognition that for decades, the world has leaned on Filipino strength without giving it a name. And now, South Korea gave it one. Indispensable. And you could feel the shift almost immediately. Korean media outlets started running features titled "The Filipino Spirit Behind Our Progress." Schools held appreciation events for Filipino teachers. Hospitals began offering language support for migrant caregivers. Even Seoul's mayor made a public statement saying, "Our gratitude to the Filipino community cannot be measured in numbers." The irony? Numbers tell the story better than words ever could. Because here's the real truth. South Korea's confession came with proof. Filipino remittances from Korea hit a record $1,460,000,000 USD cents in 2025, up 19% from the previous year, according to the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, BSP. That's not just money, that's proof of productivity, trust, and stability. Behind every one earned was a story. A Filipino nurse caring for an elderly patient in Daegu, a welder finishing a ship in Ulsan, a teacher inspiring kids in Seoul. Every peso sent home carried the weight of two nations relying on each other. But let's not romanticize it. This partnership isn't perfect. For every success story, there's another about exploitation, low wages, contract disputes, homesickness that turns into silent depression. And yet, Filipinos keep showing up not because it's easy, but because they're built for endurance, the kind that doesn't break even when it bends. And that's what stunned South Korea most. They thought they were hiring hands, but they got hearts instead. Resilient, hopeful, unstoppable hearts that rebuilt their industries quietly while smiling through the exhaustion. That's not something you can buy. That's something you earn through generations of sacrifice and pride. It's why South Korea's younger generation is starting to see Filipinos differently. In a recent Yonhap News youth survey, 72% of respondents said they viewed Filipino workers as essential contributors to national success. 10 years ago, that number barely cracked 40%. That's not just progress, that's perception evolving. But here's where it gets powerful. South Korea's admission triggered a domino effect. Japan, Singapore, and even Canada began reassessing their own Filipino workforce policies. Because once one major economy admits dependence, others can't pretend anymore. Japan's Ministry of Health even cited South Korea's EPS reforms when proposing their own visa expansion for Filipino caregivers earlier this year. The truth is contagious, especially when it's undeniable. And while the headlines focus on policy and labor stats, the real story lives in the faces of Filipinos abroad. Like Noel, a welder who once dreamed of saving enough to return home, but now manages an entire Korean shipyard division. When they finally called me supervisor, he said, "I realize this isn't their victory, it's ours." His story isn't unique anymore, it's becoming the standard. Because Filipinos aren't just working abroad, they're redefining what global labor means. They're turning the word migrant into something noble, something that commands respect instead of pity. South Korea knows it, the Philippines should too. Beauty. Here's where this gets raw. As South Korea praises us, the question that keeps echoing is this: will the Philippines protect its own? Because admiration abroad means nothing if it's not matched by empowerment at home. We can't keep sending our best only to watch them build other nations' futures while ours stagnates. The next step isn't migration, it's mobilization. Investing in skills, in dignity, in opportunities that make staying home as rewarding as leaving. Still, this moment, South Korea's confession is history in motion. It's the first time a powerhouse economy admitted that its progress owes something real to a people often overlooked. And it's not a debt of charity, it's a debt of gratitude. So let's pause and absorb that. The same country once known for exporting technology and culture just confessed that what it imports most valuable isn't goods, it's character. Filipino character. It's the laughter in the break rooms, the patience in the hospital wards, the steady hands in the factories, the unshakable loyalty in every task. That's the silent force running beneath the neon lights of Seoul, a force the world can't replicate and, finally, can't ignore. So what does this mean for us? It means we stop asking for recognition and start owning it. The world is finally catching up to what we've known all along, that the Filipino isn't just a worker. He's the world's quiet architect, the one building nations while carrying his own on his back. South Korea just said it out loud. Now it's our turn to believe it. Comment vision if you believe this is more than a headline. It's a turning point because the world wasn't ready for this truth, but it's ready for us.